Hello, everyone. Welcome to our channel of confession and cheating stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and enable the bell notification to increase engagement before we move on to our video. Let's move on to our video. All my life I knew I wanted more. From an early age I believed that success was attainable. All you had to do was catch it. When I started working for the company as a marketing manager, I realized that this was not a goal, but the beginning of a long journey. I had a dream of promotion. It was my ambition to reach the highest rank. Although I knew I deserved the accolades, I also knew that getting there would not be easy. When I learned about the marketing director role, everything started to change. I had been waiting for this moment of opportunity for a long time. I knew there were other qualified candidates with impeccable resumes. How could I make myself stand out? I kept thinking about this question. Then I had my first conversation with my supervisor, Marcos. When he called me in, I entered his office with optimism. He told me that my work was excellent and that I could do much better. When he told me about the director position, my pulse started to quicken. I started to feel as if I was getting closer to my dreams every day. But then I saw something in his eyes, something more than just professional admiration, something that gave me chills. When he started discussing what more could be done to move forward, I had a strange feeling. I was excited that he was giving me an opportunity, but something inside me told me that this was wrong, even dangerous. As I left that office, I felt conflicted, a shadow hanging over me, ready to do whatever it took to get what I wanted, even though the promotion was so close. After that encounter, everything changed. Every time I saw Marcos, my pulse quickened. Marketing was no longer the only factor. There was more between us. I wasn't sure how to deal with the anxiety that permeated the air. He started inviting me to more private meetings, and each time we met, he seemed to push the envelope again, a line I could never imagine crossing. At first, I made an effort to ignore it, convincing myself that everything was professional and that it was only in my imagination. However, every time he looked at me and our hands involuntarily touched, I realized that I hadn't imagined it. There was no denying the attraction we felt for each other, and it grew stronger every day. One day after one of these encounters, he was closer to me than I had imagined. My heart was beating wildly. Time seemed to freeze as he looked at me, and I knew exactly what was going to happen. I was curious, and I wanted to leave that room, but at the same time I was afraid to cross that barrier. I stayed, even though it was wrong. And then everything was different. That's where I had my first kiss at work, a short but passionate kiss that left me dizzy. Why had I let it happen? It was hard to refuse, even though I knew it was wrong. The only thing that attracted me to him was his authority within the organization. My husband was at home. I had made a life for myself, but now I was entering dangerous territory and a path from which there was no turning back. I wondered if anyone had seen or was aware of what was happening there. The fear of being discovered consumed me. As the days passed, the dangers increased along with our fascination. Meetings became an excuse for secret meetings. A touch here, a glance there, and I found myself in a situation I never expected. What would it cost me to advance my career? Everything could be ruined by this risky attraction. The problem was that our attraction for each other extended beyond the workplace. With every encounter and every secret glance, I experienced a dangerous mix of anxiety and excitement. I worried that someone would find out. I had never felt so alive in my life, but this could ruin my marriage and my work. Our arguments with Marcos were no longer about work. He knew what he was saying. He chose terms to get my attention. He chose phrases that gave me the impression that the promotion was getting closer and closer, and I kept digging deeper and deeper because I was focused on my goal. I just wanted it. I convinced myself that this connection was the price of success and a fast track to progress. But, deep down inside, I knew it would be so much more than that. I started to change at work. I put some distance between myself and my colleagues. I stayed away from pointless arguments. I was always afraid of revealing things. My husband started to notice at home. When they asked me why I was so tired and why I was working so hard, I answered them as if I were an actor on stage. All I was doing was working hard to get the promotion I always wanted. But how long could I continue this lie? The promotion was close, of course, but I was getting more and more entangled in a web of lies. Every time I saw Marcos, my anxiety grew along with my desire. I was afraid of being discovered. I was afraid of losing everything. Success and progress were so close at the same time that I could almost touch them both. Every night I looked in the mirror and saw a person caught between two worlds. My longing for something illegal that could harm me coexisted with my goal to succeed. The dilemma that plagued me was whether I was ready to sacrifice everything to achieve the success I desired. With every step I took with Marcos, I became more and more like my old self. The more I lied, the harder it was to get back on track. Marcos seemed more confident when he brought up the promotion. He talked as if I'd already gotten it. He believed he was responsible for everything. I wanted to think he was real, despite my desire to think that all these secrets and lies would work. Something inside me was starting to crack. I realized that I was deceiving myself, and not others, but I was no longer aware of the cost. My life began to contain lies. Every time my husband questioned me about why I was being so cold, I began to find new excuses. Knowing that everything could fall apart at any moment was the worst thing. I was afraid that eventually my husband would see that these excuses were no longer valid, but at the same time I couldn't stop myself. I felt like I was caught in a web, and the more I tried to get out, the more I got tangled in it. Every conversation I had with Marcos, and every time we kissed in the company hallway, I was trapped in those lies. I was being pulled deeper and deeper into the web. This kind of falsity couldn't go on forever. My desires made me indifferent to the possibility that it could all end. There was a promotion. It was really close. I had to keep going, even if keeping up appearances was killing me inside. Looking at my co-workers, I felt like I was on two different planets. In one world, I was a loyal professional and a devoted wife, while in the other, I was living a secret affair whose only foundation was a lie. The problem was, I had no idea how long this foundation would last. The closer I got to Marcos, the more I realized the weaknesses in my marriage. My husband had always been a good man, always kind and loving, but my internalized shame began to taint everything. I felt separate from them. The lies were so overwhelming that I couldn't look them in the eye. My justifications for working long hours began to take effect. One evening they asked me bluntly, "Are you cheating on me?" I almost choked. Fear filled my body, but I soon recovered. I looked them in the eye, tried to be convincing, and said, "Of course not. But I was aware that the seeds of suspicion had already been planted. The situation only got worse after that. My husband became more and more interested in every little thing. When I responded to a text, they would pay attention, ask where I was, and look at me strangely when I came home late from work, as if they were looking for a betrayal. I was still caught up in my lies, trying to be a faithful wife, but my heart was torn between ambition and regret. The argument was getting closer. I had the feeling that at any moment my husband could put it all together and expose me in all my nakedness. At work, the air was just as heated. My co-workers, whispering in the hallways, were beginning to notice changes. Everyone seemed to be aware or suspicious of what was going on. They seemed to be waiting for the right time for all the evidence to come together, as evidenced by their coldness towards me. I was at a loss as to what to do, knowing that if I continued down this path, there was no going back. Finally, the day I had been dreading arrived. My wife's doubts were no longer hidden. She had the look of someone who was sure of something. At any moment, we could expose everything. "Please don't sit with me," they commanded. There was an unbearable silence between us. We were both aware of the impending disaster. The walls seemed to know what was coming. They took a deep breath before speaking calmly. "You don't have to pretend anymore. I know what happened between you and Marcos. All I want to know is why." At that moment, my whole world came crashing down on me. The words I feared had finally been spoken. My husband knew. Maybe they always have. Now, all I have left is the bitter reality of my decisions. "After all this, after all the lies, I'm not sure what you are looking for," they continued. "I'm not sure if this is a promotion or something else, but I know you've ruined our relationship. I'm not sure if I can forgive you for that." Each sentence was like a dagger in my chest, and I could hear the sadness in their voices. The friendship between Marcos and I was no longer so secret. When a few of my co-workers noticed, the rumors spread quickly. The hardest part was that someone else had gotten the promotion I so desperately wanted. For all the sacrifices I had made and the wrong decisions I had made, I had gained nothing. Pedro was defeated. That evening, I decided to leave home. Even though they said they needed time to think, I knew they wouldn't come back. I was the subject of gossip at work, and my colleagues no longer respected me. I tried to rationalize all this for a promotion that never happened. Ambition took its toll on me. In the process, I lost my identity, my marriage, and my respect. Now, all I have to do is deal with the consequences of my decisions. Worst of all, I was responsible for destroying the life I knew. This is the end of our story of infidelity. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the bell notification to get our stories before anyone else. See you in our next cheating story. Goodbye.